Before we get started, a small preamble about The Mandalorian. I like watching the show. Half the time I'm unironically enjoying it, surrounded by my extended family. The other half of the time I'm squirming in my seat trying not to shout, "That makes no sense at all!" During Season 2, however, it seems I spend an awful lot more time squirming, so I'm starting this little series. These videos will only be about the action of Mandalorian, not the plot. Plenty of that doesn't make sense either, but I'm not trying to split my focus. I'm going to cover all the episodes in the series, but the first one will be Season 2, Episode 5, The Jedi, the one that single-handedly convinced me to make this series. The episode actually has a really good start. We're introduced to Ahsoka, a fan favorite, as she cuts down some presumably nasty guards. First, she uses the Force to create a distraction, and while they're not looking, she cuts down one of the guards, and throws a log at the other one for good measure. It's really nice because she actually made that log that she threw at the guy by slashing through the tree with it. It's just a really nice little set piece that she does. And that's about it. It's a really strong start, and then it fumbles almost immediately. Ahsoka is sneaking around and taking out guards. That's neat, but her weapons glow when they're on, so she has to have them off and turn them on just before attacking. That makes sense. The problem is, they make this sound every time she turns them on. Lucky for her, only about half of the guards react to sound. So that's a strike against the action. Good concept, lacking execution. Other than that, there's not much to cover in the nameless guard fight, so we'll just move on to Ahsoka versus the Mandalorian. Okay, so quick little lesson on dual-wielding weapons. One of the major advantages is you can use the weapons to attack different spots at the same time. Ahsoka, being an experienced Jedi, should understand that absolutely the worst way to use two weapons is to attack the same spot with both. Let's see how this goes. Alright, first hit. Because she was falling, there's nowhere else she can reach. This is fine, you get a pass on this one. Second hit. Alright, no pass on this one. You've landed and you can swing at whatever you want. Don't use your swords like this. Third hit. This is just getting silly. First, she swings again like she's in handcuffs, but he even moves to block long before she makes contact. If she were to change the angle even slightly with her weapon, she could get his hand, his head, his torso, his hips, whatever she wants. But she doesn't. Boo! You're supposed to be a trained fighter. Fourth hit. Following the overswing to end all overswings, instead of doing something sensible like returning to a ready stance, she attacks again with both sabers in the same spot. Stellar stuff right here. Fifth hit. Oh, what a surprise, both weapons attacking the same spot again. See earlier criticisms. They try to make the fight interesting at this point with some gymnastics and a neat use of the Force jump, but at this point is too little too late. There is one more proper engagement to go before the, epic final fight. Ahsoka jumps up and lays waste to some gate guards. It starts out fine. Ahsoka kicks a guy away and deflects a few shots. The guards, however, now have their guns trained on her. She's flanked, but has a few options. She can A. Use cover to avoid fire from one side. B. Use both lightsabers to deflect from both sides, using the Force to guide her and keep her safe. C. Use Force powers to knock some combatants out of the fight and concentrate in one direction. So which does she pick? None of those. She picks D. She trusts the guards flanking her to either be too honorable to shoot her in the back or too lazy to shoot at all. It gets more than a little ridiculous from this side in particular. There are 2 men stationed over here. As a bonus, we'll have a timer to count how much free time they give her between shots. Considering these are semi-automatic lasers, that's a whole lot of time, especially since she isn't even moving. But wait, you might say, only one guy attacked her from that side. Good eye, viewer. Lazy guard over here didn't shoot a single time when she was on the wall. In fact, if you aren't paying attention precisely on him, you wouldn't even know he was there in the first place. The only 2 shots he's visible are this one where he's a floating gun, and this one where he's, I don't know, having a dance party. Things conclude when this unreasonably loyal guard attacks her with a bell mallet. One quick question. When Ahsoka cuts the bell, its supports let go and retract upward. Why? It's not a real issue, and this one could easily be classified as a nitpick. Maybe there's a good reason. I don't know. Again, fun use of the Force, and even this cute interaction can't save the fight. 100 or so missed blasters later, including about 4 uninterrupted seconds of missing and no deflections, we're here. The climactic finish. It begins with a stare down, and it's far longer than it has any right to be. If you haven't watched an entirely different series, we're introduced to both of these characters in this episode. I'll be going blow by blow for most of this fight because there's some stuff to see here. None of which is the Force, sadly. I put it at 3 times speed and I'm still talking, and it's not done yet. Eventually, both are in a ready stance, of sorts. I'm no spear expert, I'm more of a sword guy, but that stance seems wrong. Lacking the expertise myself, I looked up a few treatises. This is the closest thing I could find. It looks pretty similar, but this is actually demonstrating how to get into a stance to not stab your friends when marching, so whoops. If they wanted one that was more fighting ready, they probably would have went with this. True, you're limited to a thrust in this form. But first, spears are long. You can recover and adjust from the thrust before they can kill you. Second, spears are primarily for thrusting. It's got a pointy end. It's not the worst stance, but she uses the spear as much more of a staff throughout this whole fight. She does stab a few times, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. The fight begins. She attempts to bonk Ahsoka, who easily blocks it, and then Ahsoka responds in kind. But there's one major flaw already. Watch this second hit. Did you catch it? The spear has no guard. The lightsaber slips right down until Ahsoka stops it from chopping off her fingers. Even a normal blade could cause serious damage in this position because her hands are unarmored. I'm ignoring the times when Ahsoka has an easy kill shot on purpose because the show lets us know Ahsoka needs information from this woman. We've seen time and again, however, that chopping off hands is a very common Jedi tactic. It's not even unheard of to have a bit of a chat after minor truncation in this universe. It should happen right here, and nearly every exchange after this when they're caught in the bind, but it doesn't. Just assume every time they pause with weapons crossed, I ask why Ahsoka doesn't just take her hands. They make motions as if to circle one another, but they remember they're on a narrow walkway, so they end up exactly where they started. Now pay close attention to the spear. She raises it again, a bit like before, but more horizontal. The head is very clearly in the back of the spear. Now, with a frame-by-frame advance, the head is now pointed toward Ahsoka. If you don't believe me, a bit further advancement shows that the other end of the spear is clearly the butt of the weapon. Magic spear confirmed. They get in a bind again with a lovely double block from Ahsoka. Next scene with these two, there's a quick exchange. It's not bad. The spear is used to knock aside Ahsoka's weapon, and she spins into a thrust. Spinning is a terrible idea about 90% of the time. But again, this isn't that bad. Ahsoka has extended herself to swing her right sword, so the left can't be brought to attack by the time the spin is complete, assuming she spins quickly and takes a step back. Good job, Mandalorian. You get a "this spin wouldn't kill me" sticker. She even goes in for a thrust. Huzzah! Unfortunately, the praise can't last. The thrust is awful. It's probably 2 feet off the target. Ahsoka dodges it because, I don't know, she feels bad for her or something. Camera pulls back and we get 2 more quick thrusts. Good job on stabbing with a spear again. Unfortunately, those 3 thrusts, comprised of less than 2 seconds, are the only ones in the entire fight. Ahsoka feels left out and decides to miss by a mile as well, then both spin for no reason and change places. You're lucky you don't take back stickers. A hit or two later, Ahsoka falls back into bad habits and attacks the same spot with both weapons. Please stop. Except for some telegraphed attacks and overswings, there's not much to complain about in the next exchange. Jedis get a free pass for flipping because the Force or whatever. The spear swing, however, is wide. It actually passes by Ahsoka's trailing jump leg before it even takes off the ground. That, of course, can't really be seen unless it's a frame-by-frame, so not nearly as much of a mistake as some of the other things here. Ahsoka blocks the spear, and this is a pretty good time for some clarification. Don't be fooled into thinking this frame is a problem because of Ahsoka's weapons. She's blocking with both. Since the spear is two-handed, it has the advantage on force, and she may need both hands to block it. That's fine. Technically, yes, the swing was going to miss by itself, and Ahsoka should have just cut off her arm. But in a fight, you can't always tell, nor do you always take the best course of action, even with training. I'd argue this swing was far enough away Ahsoka knew she didn't need to block it, but it's debatable. What's funny is Morgan pulls her weapon away next. Her name's Morgan, by the way. That's just suicidal in this position. If Ahsoka just continues pushing, her opponent will die. Ahsoka, however, is very generous and doesn't continue pushing to kill or just flick her wrist to take off an arm. She's nice that way. Ahsoka swings and Morgan ducks. Bonus points for actually dodging the weapon rather than a crazy miss by itself. After one more exchange, the spear hits Ahsoka's weapon and disarms her. I can only guess that the force of the spear was far too much for her to keep a grip because there's no other reason to let go of her weapon. Doubtful, but we'll give the show some slack, I guess. A quick side note. A person with 2 weapons being disarmed of one of them is kind of a TV trope. Next time you see a close duel with one of the 2 combatants dual wielding, just expect the fight to only really start when one of those weapons is disarmed. One bit of praise here for a small thing I missed on the first viewing. Look at the spear tip. She's sort of swaying it around. Our eyes are very good at detecting movement from a static position, but not nearly as much so when the object is already moving. This little bit of sway will help delay Ahsoka's reaction by a fraction of a second. It's not much at all, but it may be enough to help land a killing blow. Very nice. Unfortunately, something good just happened and we can't have that stand. Ahsoka flips her sword to reverse grip. You can tell she's being serious now. Just look at Morgan's expression. Priceless. Quick tip. Reverse grip has its place. That place is with daggers, not swords. A lightsaber is saved from one of the major flaws of the reverse grip. Your power to swing is extremely diminished. But by the same token, lightsabers make the reduction of force very deadly for you. If Ahsoka blocked the spear near the tip of the sword, the blade would act as a lever against her, pushing the blade toward herself. This isn't as big a deal with normal blades, but a lightsaber doesn't care how little force there is. It'll burn through the touched area regardless. If you want, I can make a whole video on how terrible reverse grip is for swords, but now's not the time. We've got some questionable combat to get back to. Ahsoka blocks an attack and puts her free hand on the spear. For some reason she does so with an open hand rather than grabbing the spear. She then gives a telegraphed baseball swing. Thankfully that's blocked, and one questionable spin later, Ahsoka tries to stab again. She's blocked. Now Ahsoka is in an awful position. Her weapon is way off target, and sliding up the spear is still not a thing she's doing. From here Morgan has a plethora of options, simplest of which she could keep the butt of the spear planted and hit Ahsoka with it in the head like she's been trying to do this entire time. It wouldn't kill her, but even a suboptimal whack to the head is bad news on the receiving end. Instead of doing anything that makes sense, she kicks her spear, graciously giving Ahsoka back her weapon and putting her foot near her lightsaber. Why? Regardless, everyone makes a quick pirouette and Ahsoka attacks. Please note that she has switched back to normal sword grip. Good choice. Until you advance literally to the next frame and she's back in reverse grip. Moving a bit forward, normal sword grip. Moving a bit forward, back in reverse grip. No, that's not just a trick of the camera, she's back in reverse grip. Bad Ahsoka, bad continuity. This time she grabs the spear. Finally a good choice. There's a quick grapple for the spear, but then we see one of the reasons that reverse grip can work for a dagger. She traps the butt of the spear with the hilt of her weapon and her wrist. Entrapping it that way allows her to use her other hand as well to disarm the spear. Now why is this allowed for a dagger and not a sword, you might ask? The main reason is it's very easy to get into this position with a dagger since you don't have a lengthy blade to slip past your opponent. Again, I can go over reverse grip in another video if you want to. Now something funny happens in this disarm. She pulls the spear away, the point is down and the blunt end is upward. Even in the next shot this is clearly the case, but when the spear hits the ground, the tip and the butt switch places. Magic spear double confirmed. It's almost like the spear is put into whatever position is more aesthetically pleasing, rather than the position it belongs in. Weird. And that's Ahsoka versus Morgan Elsbeth. Truly a hideous fight. Now, are you more likely to notice problems when slowing footage down like this? Absolutely. Did I notice all these problems on my first casual viewing? No, but I saw enough of them to convince me to make this series. On the first view, I only noticed the awful stances, lack of thrust, terrible misses, and the reverse grip. I figured I missed more, and oh boy was I right. As I mentioned earlier, I'll be going over the other individual episodes of The Mandalorian. I'll start with the first season and move on one by one. Each episode probably won't warrant quite this much of a breakdown since melee weapons are my specialty, but I know there's enough questionable action to where it should be lots of fun. But what do you think? Are there worse fights in The Mandalorian? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. In any case, please like, share, and subscribe so you can enjoy more Mandalorian action in the next episode.